Howdy, it's Jim Morado, and this is very late March 2025. We're in Arizona, heading to Meteor Crater, and very excited about this trip. We actually came here, I want to say in '07 or '08, with another couple and did this trip. We did some spring training baseball, and we made it to Meteor Crater and just had a great time. And we wanted to redo the trip with them. They have since had a couple of kids that are getting older, and we thought it would be great to do the basically redo the trip, but with their kids along this time, and it was just a lot of fun. And here we are driving out to Meteor Crater. Very, very otherworldly landscape all over Arizona if you're not used to it. Yeah, check that out. Check out the skies and just the way the earth looks. As we drove around Arizona, especially you get around Sedona, and even parts of definitely parts of the Grand Canyon. We did the Painted Desert, Petrified Forest, a couple of other national parks. The land is just it's so otherworldly, and I know that's almost cliche to say, but it really is, especially as you're driving out to Meteor Crater. I went back and I watched Starman, 1984, I believe, John Carpenter movie. Was filmed, actually, it was filmed quite a bit in Tennessee, and they filmed especially the ending of it out here at Meteor Crater, and it was very appropriate. What a good movie, by the way. I forgot how good that movie was, and it was really cool watching it again after visiting Meteor Crater. Very nice drive out to the crater, and had a nice time. It was also interesting. Like I said, it had been not quite 2 decades since we were here last, and the museum, the visitor center, was very different from our first visit. Anyway, this video, it's, I don't know, maybe 50 minutes long, and I'm gonna chat here for a couple more minutes. We're gonna get to the museum, and a very nice fellow is gonna give us a partial tour. We're gonna walk around the crater a little bit, and he's gonna narrate. Very, very nice guide, very informative, and glad we took the little walk around the crater. You cannot walk all the way around it, and you cannot walk down into the crater. You need to be in really good shape to even think about walking in and walking back out of it. They reserve that mostly for people doing research at this point. Even our guide, I think he said he has not gone down there yet, but he will be soon, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, just a fascinating place. The museum is excellent. The gift shop is great. Yeah, there is the entrance to the gift shop. Kind of nice red earthy look, blends in with the landscape. Oh, and there is part of the meteor. I believe that part of the meteor was stolen back in the 70s, and then somebody bought it years later at a garage sale, thinking they were going to scrap it for metal, and then later on they realized, somehow it was brought to their attention, that it was part of Meteor Crater, and they donated it back to Meteor Crater. Lots of cool stuff here at the museum and outside of the museum, by the way. Check that out. Very cool place to hang out for a day. Lots of cool photo ops. The museum was excellent. Lots of information on space, and I like that. Lots going on with the crater. I'll let our tour guide tell us more about it. Oh yeah, they added a very nice coffee shop here since we were here last, and I thought that was pretty cool. Some cool space related memorabilia. I love this kind of stuff. They do show a movie, and yeah, you can definitely spend a whole day here and learn a lot. It's pretty much what we did. We had a great time. Oh, there's a bigger piece of the meteor. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and let our tour guide take over, and I'll probably have something to say once this is all said and done.
We'll for the next 45 minutes or so. Before we go out on the trail, I want to talk about a few things. First, this big hunk of rock I have in front of me, this meteorite, as well as the meteorite that caused the crater you see here behind me, is 4.5 billion years old. This is 100% real. It is not a cast. It is not a replica. This came from space. You come touch it. It broke off from the asteroid belt that separates Mars and Jupiter about 500 million years ago. Then 50,000 years ago, this piece landed a couple miles down that way in our backyard in Canyon Diablo. If this chunk landed a couple miles in our backyard, it is therefore not the piece of the meteor that caused the crater. That piece is about 150 feet in diameter, about half the size that dog's parking lot. It really isn't that big if you think about the hole that it created. However, it was 300,000 tons, coming at 11 miles a second. Just barely missed our visitor center. Why we believe this one, However, in that case, 90% of the meteor completely vaporized on impact because it has heat and energy. The reason we believe this one is so well intact is because it broke off from the meteor as it was coming into the atmosphere. And because it broke off in kind of a smaller piece, wasn't going as fast, therefore was less hot, therefore had less energy, therefore was able to remain more intact once it landed over there in Canyon Diablo. After 50,000 years of erosion, the tip of the meteorite was sticking out of the desert floor over there. And a man named Holsinger, on his mail route from Flagstaff to Winslow, spotted the tip of it sticking out of the desert. However, he thought he could just pick it up, throw it in his saddlebag, be on his way. However, as you guys can see, a bit of an iceberg more than met the eye. Any guesses of how much it weighs? 5 tons. Well, here's 6. 600 pounds. 28 tons. Woo. It is 1,406 pounds. And because of this, it took Holsinger and 5 other men, as well as a buggy and a mule, for them to remove it over there to Winslow. And I believe they had to go through a couple of buggies as the thing kept just falling through the bed of it. Holsinger told his friend Beringer about his discovery, and together they were very, very interested in mining the crater you see here behind me. Because they figured if this was just a small piece they found on the outskirts, there must be a giant, giant chunk of it living in the bottom of the crater. However, like I mentioned earlier, 90% of it had completely vaporized on impact, unbeknownst to them. Holsinger unfortunately died of a heart attack a few years later, but Beringer kept the dream alive and invested $500,000 to mine the crater. Of course, this $500,000 in the early 20th century translates to around $7 or $8 million today. However, at the bottom of the crater, he never ever ended up finding anything bigger than golf ball, baseball-sized pieces of it, because, like I said, 90% of it had completely vaporized on impact. Put out a couple things on this wonderful picture here behind me. See this kind of 45-degree angle that goes down to the bottom of the crater? That's an old ramp. Not a ramp for people, but a ramp for heavy mining equipment to be lowered down to the bottom of the crater. The top of this rim was a mule. That mule was attached to a rope, and that rope was attached to a wheel. Kind of acted as a makeshift elevator system. As the mule would go one way, the rope would be lowered. As he went the other, it would come back up. Of course, Beringer wasn't mining the crater alone. He had an entire team of miners with him. They even set up a whole village on the south rim for the miners, complete with houses for their families, and even a schoolhouse for the children. He was in it for the long haul. Right around here, kind of hard to see on this picture, this remnants of the first homestead started by Beringer and Holsinger. That's actually how they were able to acquire the land, was through the Homestead Act. They built their structures and maintained it long enough to where eventually they claimed ownership over the entire crater. Then eventually got mining approval from Teddy Roosevelt himself out of all these. That first homestead also acted as the first museum for the crater. I say museum, it was more like a one-room ticket booth operation. 50 cents would get you to the bottom of the crater, back up. Operations have changed a little bit since then, unfortunately. However, one day, a clumsy ranch hand knocked over a lantern, and the entire thing burned down. They rebuilt it. However, up here on the Colorado Plateau, as y'all were just about to experience, we get very, very high wind speeds. And because of these high wind speeds, the second museum kind of got the Three Little Pigs treatment. It got blown over. Third time's the charm, right? The third time, they put this chunk of the Holsinger meteorite right in front of the building. It's kind of an ornamental piece. However, this thing is almost 100% metallic. It's 92% iron, 7% nickel, 0.5% cobalt, and the other 0.5 is 81 different elements. Because of this composition, it acted as kind of a lightning rod. Some of you are ahead of me. Lightning struck the museum, and it burned down a second time. So it turns out fourth time is actually the charm. This whole structure that we're standing on right now was originally built in the 60s. It's been renovated a number of times, and we got lightning rods all over the place. So we learned our lesson. Just a couple of logistics before we head out on the trail, y'all. I want to mention this is a committed tour, which means we all go out together, we all come back together. I'm locking the door behind me. I'm not kidding, I am. The reason that I do that is that if anybody follows us out there, and I don't lock the door, and they fall into the crater, God forbid, I'll have no idea they were out there in the first place. We got no cameras out there or anything. It's going to be around half an hour to 45 minutes, quarter mile out, quarter mile back. That commitment doesn't sound good to you guys. Observation decks are through those double doors right there. You have the entire day to see the crater at your own. We also ask that you please, please, please stay on trail. As you guys see behind me, we're the best preserved meteor crater in the world. That's thanks to you guys. Not only because y'all came to support here today, but because y'all stay on the trail, you take nothing with you other than pictures and memories, and leave nothing behind. That part's also very important. Conservation isn't enough motive. We also have some desert critters, some poisonous plants out there. The poisonous plant is kind of like a poison ivy, but instead of a rash, it's blisters. So for everybody's sake, let's all just stay on the trail. I'll be leading the pack in case any of those desert critters do jump out. They can get me. You guys can all run back to the entrance. I'll throw you the key, and we'll go from there. Although I do ask, if it is a snake that jumps out and I start wrestling with it, somebody get a video of it so I can show my friends, all right? Although the likelihood of that happening is very, very low, as we are still kind of in the wintry season, and they kind of don't like to be anywhere around us. As you see out there, the path that we're going to be taking is paved, although it was paved around 25 years ago, and there's a lot of potholes around it. Just watch your step as we go out there. And then one more piece, it is rather windy out there. Although I don't believe it is too windy, there is a chance I might turn us around if I feel like at any point it's unsafe. We have railing. We don't have any railings out there other than the ones you guys see right there. And we want to keep everybody out of the crater. So the likelihood I'll turn us around is quite low, but just give you guys a heads up, it might happen. All right? That sound good, everybody? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Let's go have some fun, you guys.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to keep this video fairly complete, give you a whole idea of the walkout and everything. So, yeah, just a few things to point out. Sorry about some of the audio. We are in a museum. There's other groups kind of coming and going and other people coming and going. So there's some talking. You could definitely hear what he was saying, though, so I'm happy with it. And, of course, we're about to go outside. For this entire trip in Arizona, it was windy. Everywhere was windy, and I can't overemphasize that. There were literally moments, I'm thinking specifically, I think of the Painted Desert, where I thought I could have gotten blown over. I had to take my baseball cap off. I went with a sock cap because, I would have lost my head otherwise. At the Grand Canyon, we did see somebody literally lose their hat thanks to the wind. So yeah, just for what that's worth. And we're going out, checking out the parking lot there. A very isolated feel. As we go out, you feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere. And we're going to walk out, and we're going to see the crater here in a moment. And it is crazy. It is just so impressive. And you see people just stop and take pictures. Similar to other sites In Arizona, the Grand Canyon, I mentioned the Painted Desert, Sunset Crater. You see these things, and photos don't do it justice. My video does not do it justice. No photo, no video will ever do this justice. You've got to go there and see it, and it is amazing. Our guide would take a picture of us, our group, in front of the crater. It's one of the best pictures I have. I'm sure he has a lot of experience with that, but check that out. And I'm still blown away just looking at it right now. And you have to stop what you're doing and take pictures when you're there. It is that incredible, and it is that stunning. So yeah, we'll turn it back over to our guide.
Woo-wee! That's a big hole. Y'all hear me? Y'all down there, can you hear me? Awesome. Okay. Looking down to the bottom of the crater, y'all might immediately notice that kind of fenced off area down there at the center. That is remnants of the first mining attempt started by Barringer. It makes sense, right? If there was this giant chunk of meteorite living in the crater, it should be in the center of it where it hit. However, he went down 180 feet, hit the water table, flooded all of his equipment, and had to start over. 26 different drill sites over 28 years. Barringer tried to find this meteorite. Like I said back inside, never ever finding anything bigger than golf ball, baseball sized pieces of it in the crater. Inside of that fenced off area, you might notice some white powder. That is silica powder. Although he wasn't able to find a lot of iron, he was able to find some silica, sell that off for a small profit. I believe they use it for glass making at the time. I should also mention too is that Barringer was very, very interested in the meteorite, not necessarily because it was from outer space, but because of the iron that it contained, or supposedly contained. They were building the railroad at the time, and Barringer figured if he found this giant chunk of the meteorite, giant chunk of iron, he could sell it off to the highest bidder, retire rich, and then I guess we would have a railroad made out of meteorite. But unfortunately, that did not happen. The bottom right of that fenced off area, if you guys go a little to the left, you notice a little white tic tac, white thumb looking thing? See that? It's a 6 foot tall astronaut statue. Just to give you guys a perspective of how deep and how far away it actually is. If you cannot spot it right now, as we continue on, the different angles should help. But it just looks like a little white tic tac to our eyes. See it? A little to the left of that fenced off area, you guys see those big black objects down there? It's a 15-foot long steam boiler and a steam powered winch used to lower down people and equipment into that mine shaft. That's some of that heavier equipment that would have had to be brought down that slide by that poor mule. I said steam boiler, do y'all see any water around you? No. Before they tapped into that water table, they actually had to make a makeshift sheet metal canal that went about 4 or 5 miles out, slowly dribbled water down to the bottom of the crater to fill up that steam boiler. Like I said, he was determined. Absolutely determined. At the bottom of the crater, do you guys notice that kind of tan imprint? Kind of just that circle at the bottom? That's remnants of an ancient lake bed. After the impact happened, the force was so great that it tapped into that water table and temporarily created a lake down there. However, nowadays, all of that ground down there is very pulverized, very sandy, very porous. So any water that does make its way down there will just sink down to the bottom towards that water table. So the crater itself will never actually fill up with water. You guys see that ramp that I pointed out earlier? If you go a little to the right of it, you guys see that little zigzag switchback? That's the trail the miners would have had to use to get down to the crater every single day for their daily work. I drive around 40 minutes to get out here every day, and I think my commute is bad. Could not imagine lugging a big pickaxe down there every single day. Directly across from us on the south wall, You guys notice that red streak that kind of runs down the entire wall? That's excrement from the last mining attempt started by Beringer. He went on top of the south rim, went down 1,300 feet. He hit something really, really hard, and he was like, oh my gosh, I found the meteorite. It was bedrock. His equipment broke, his cable snapped, and after that, he was forced to retire. Wasn't able to afford to continue mining the crater. Beringer was absolutely convinced this was a meteor crater. However, at the time, early 1900s, he was one of the few who thought so. In fact, the chief geologist of the U.S. Geological Survey came out here to confirm or deny the rumors, and he concluded that this was volcanic in nature. They didn't know a lot about impact craters at the time, and the leading geologists, they concluded if this was an impact crater, then the object that created it would have to be at least the size of the hole it left behind. And if that was the case, where is it? Not understanding that something way smaller with a lot of energy caused such a hole. This theory does make a little bit of sense. If you guys look towards the horizon, they're a bit misty right now, but you'll see the beautiful San Francisco peaks over there in Flagstaff, highest point in Arizona at 13,000 feet. Those are all volcanic ranges. So he incorrectly concluded that this must just be a very far away steam vent from those formations. Nevertheless, Beringer still believed in his theory, and he actually went to his grave still convinced this was a meteor crater. However, it would not be proven to be so until around 30 years later, in 1960. And the way this was confirmed was through the work of a man named Dr. Eugene Shoemaker. Dr. Shoemaker was studying bomb craters out in Nevada. They were doing atomic testing out there in the 60s, and he was studying the craters that they left behind. At the bottom of those craters in Nevada, he found a mineral composition called coesite. And coesite can only be formed by an intense heat, impact, pressure, explosion, frankly like that of an atomic bomb. Of course, in that case it was a man-made creation because of the atomic testing, but Dr. Shoemaker found that same mineral composition at the bottom of this crater, naturally. Meaning, of course, it could only in fact be a meteor crater. This was very monumental work. Y'all might have seen inside, we are not only the best preserved in the world, we're also the first proven in the world. After Dr. Shoemaker's findings, it actually led to the identification of hundreds of other meteor craters around the world. After his confirmation, the Apollo astronauts actually came to train here. And what they were doing here is they figured that this land and this terrain would be as similar as they could get to the moon while still being on Earth. They came here in 1964, so they hadn't been to the moon yet. So they were just guessing, and honestly, pretty good guess. Specifically, what they were doing here is they were testing the strength of their suits and their tools and the rover. So I like to think they had their suits on and rolled around in the rocks, maybe did the twist because it was the 60s, banging their hammers into things, and they let the rover out in the surrounding area. One of the trainees, actually, one of the astronauts, tore his sleeve on one of the rocks, and he was not happy about this. He went back to NASA and said, what's going to happen to me if that happens on the moon, So they actually went back to the drawing board, had to create a thicker suit. Although we all know, 5 years later, 1969, they were all on the moon and back safely. But who knows what would have happened without that testing, Maybe America would still be the first ones on the moon, but with a man who didn't make it back. Another one of the reasons they came to train here is that over there in Flagstaff, we have a crater called Sunset Crater. However, it is volcanic in origin. So they could come out here, they could readily go back and forth and compare and contrast those craters. So once they were on the moon, there's a lot of craters up on the moon, they knew what they were looking at, Oh, that's a meteor crater, oh, that's volcanic. Before we continue on, does anybody have any questions for me? Comments, concerns, stories, anything? Oh, yeah. Because it's too cool. It's too cool to sell off. I'm sure we could get I'm sure we could get millions for it, but we're all about the science here, man. And, Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I think that one, oh, you're right, like back in the day. Sure. I think if anything, it was kind of a pride reminder for Beringer. Like, oh, we found this piece. Let's keep going. That's a good question. It's a great question. It's a great question. No spoilers yet. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I'll have some visuals for you too. So yeah, that's a great question. Any other questions before we continue? Yeah, another mining attempt. That's also that silver powder. All right, y'all. Let's continue on to the next stop.
All right, and that has been an excellent presentation and tour so far, and it will continue to be excellent. We have an amazing guide. He's got a little bit of comedic timing going on there perfectly at times. And what he's doing with his voice, by the way, with the wind, he's really doing a great job of projecting his voice and making sure everybody could hear him. It was really windy, and as I was videotaping, I was concerned that I was just getting just wind and nothing else on that audio. So he was doing just an amazing job. So yeah, we're gonna move up a little bit further up in the crater and get a different look. I would just edit the next few minutes out, but I kind of like keeping everything complete. I hope you don't mind. If you want to skip over my babbling for the next few minutes, go ahead and fast forward to about the 30-minute mark, and our narrator will start talking again and giving some more narration. I couldn't quite see the little starman or the little astronaut there at the bottom of the crater. I assume it's basically the same statue we saw at the beginning, but that does give you a sense of just how big this place is. You know, there's a little 6-foot tall statue down there, and I couldn't pick it up with the zoom on my camera. So yeah. Can you imagine, being an early pioneer and just coming across this place? I mean, that would just blow my mind. And I'm sure that those guys had lots of other stuff to think about and other things to blow their minds, especially those first few guys that were coming over from the east, moving towards the west, and of course those early Native Americans that lived in this area too. I'm sure they had stories for this stuff, but yeah, just a crazy isolated area, and something crazy to see. I do appreciate the fact that there's not any railing here. I appreciate the fact that they've kept it pretty wild. I mean, there's the visitor center, there is the paved area through here, but for the most part, I mean, you're taking it in the way it would have looked, 100, 200, 300 years ago, and I think that's really neat. Of course, they say this went down 50,000 years ago, and it would have been like a crazy atomic bomb, and I'm sure lots of wildlife was taken out instantly when that hit. But what a spectacular thing that would have been to have witnessed from a distance. It's amazing thinking too about the kind of hopes that they would find that big piece of the meteor eventually that would be somewhat of a payday for them. I guess I'm glad they never really found it, but man, that's talk about chasing the golden egg or trying to get that carrot. Just crazy to think about. And by the way, I'm sure I'll talk about this on some of my other videos. There is so much to see out in Arizona. We were stationed, we kind of kept our headquarters around Flagstaff, and we ended up going to, I believe, 7 national parks, counting the Grand Canyon. We hit some kind of abandoned tourist trap areas that were really neat, and just had a great time. We went to Arizona. There's so much to do in Arizona, it kind of blows my mind. And I look forward to more trips out to this area as often as I can. I really, really love getting here, and it's just such a treat. The entire state is a treat, and there's so much of it that I haven't covered yet. This was our third trip altogether to Arizona, but yeah, it's I need more time in Arizona for sure. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up for a little bit again and let our guide talk.
Yeah, yeah, right. Sorry, let me just go to my desk real quick. Now that we're out here, y'all, a little farther away from the visitor center, you're going to have a better look at the geological layers that make up the crater, if you guys look back towards it. From the bottom to the top, we have a layer of white coconino sandstone, a thin yellow layer of kaibab limestone, a top red layer of Moenkopi sandstone. If y'all look out towards the horizon, you'll notice that red Moenkopi sandstone is the natural desert floor. However, around 200, 300 yards in every direction towards us is this bottom white sandstone. What the heck, right? What happened here is a process called reverse stratigraphy, where the impact was so great that the land actually flipped on itself, causing a double layer of red, another thin layer of yellow, and then all of these white rocks that you guys see around you. These white rocks should not be here. They should live deep inside of the crater. But like I said, we're ejected out 200, 300 yards in every single direction. And like I said, that red Moenkopi is the natural desert floor. You might notice if you look out towards the white, there's way sparser plant life. Once you guys make your way back towards the freeway, look how much more plants there are, or how many more plants there are on that red Moenkopi. This reverse stratigraphy process is also one of the reasons why the astronauts came to train here. If they could identify meteor craters on the moon, they wouldn't have to lug up heavy mining equipment. They could just pick up the surface rocks, because they knew at one point in time those surface rocks lived deep inside of the moon. It seems a bit lazy to me. Efficient is a good word. Efficient. Y'all notice that Barty Bar Ranch sign as you guys came in? They've been a part of this crater family since its inception. The Chilsons and the Tremaines out there at Barty Bar, together with the descendants of Beringer, make up Meteor Crater Enterprises. We're still privately owned, still in the Beringer family. In fact, this Jenny Beringer is around here today doing a little bit of research. That Barty Bar ranch used to be and still is an active cattle ranch. Y'all might have noticed some cattle on the freeway or on the road coming up here. They were not shy about being on the road, so be careful about that. They actually almost made me late for my first day. They were crossing the road. But that's what I told my boss. I'm just kidding. But all those cows are indeed Barty Bar cattle, and they are prized cows. A lot of the surrounding area still gets their meat from them. They own 300,000 acres in every single direction. All of this land that you see around us, apart from the crater itself. 300,000 acres, that's a lot of acres. That's bigger than a few states on the East Coast. The ranchers, unfortunately, have also had to assist with a couple of rescue operations in our day. Back in the 60s, two pilots piloting a little 150 Cessna, a two-pilot, no-passenger plane, had spotted the crater up ahead. They actually wanted to go inside of it to get a closer look at one of the old mine shafts. However, what they did not account for is that this is actually a heat vortex. Heat is bouncing off the walls every single second to make it around 10 degrees warmer inside the crater than out. And because of this, as they came in, they were not adjusted to flying at that heat, and they began to spiral down. They tried to get momentum to make their way back up, but eventually crash landed down there on that western wall. Both pilots miraculously survived, although they had to spend around a year in a body cast, which could not have been fun. And they were rescued by those wonderful ranchers at a Barty Bar along with the military. The entire plane actually used to be out on display. bottom of the crater. However, pilots up ahead kept calling it in and being like, oh my gosh, there was a plane crash at Meteor Crater, send some help. So they eventually just threw most of it down one of the old mine shafts. Easiest way to get rid of stuff down there, I guess. However, nowadays, the wing and the fuselage are still visible down there. If you guys look down towards that western wall, you'll see a couple of kind of white metallic objects that kind of stick out. That's the wing and the fuselage of that 150 Cessna. You see them? They just look like tiny pieces from our eyes. Yeah. Also, back in the 80s, two people in a VW bus went to the eastern rim of the crater right up against it. Maybe to catch the sunset, I'm not sure what they were doing. Not realizing that the ground underneath them was not compact, slowly began to give way. They tumbled down into the bottom of the crater. Again, both people miraculously survived. I have no idea how. They were in a VW bus. It was the 1980s. Maybe not. I don't know. But they survived. And they were rescued by those wonderful ranchers at a Barty Bar as well. A couple of their cattle have also gotten stuck down there in their day. However, I have no idea how they get those guys back up. Helicopter maybe? Maybe just a barbecue at the bottom of the crater. Impact, the depth of the crater was much deeper, about 1,000 feet deep. It launched a big dust cloud ejected blanket into the sky, settled back down to give it a depth around 750 feet. However, nowadays, as we're looking at it, it's only around 550 feet on average deep. And the reason for that is the wind. Every single day, every single second, the wind is blowing in debris and no people yet, thank God. To the point where scientists actually believe the crater will eventually be topped off, be filled up, and we can just walk right across. It's good you guys came today. Yeah. You also, I like to think too that archaeologists way in the future are going to have a fun time this topped off crater, wondering why there's a plane in a VW bus about 1,000 feet below the ground. That's a problem for another day, I guess. For those of you who came from the documentary, it'll tell you that a meteor came in from the east. I was told it came in from the south. And the reason that I believe that, you guys look over towards the south rim, you see all those trees thriving over there? They're still on top of that red Moenkopi sandstone, that natural habitat for them. So what I believe happened here is that if you picture your hand slapping the water, your wrist is going to be the thing that makes the first sharp indent, but your fingers, or your hands rather, are going to be the things making the biggest splash. As you see, west, east, and north, we have all of these white rocks on top of the rim, while on the south, the red is very much still intact. I told you I was told something different in the documentary. The angle we're debating about is only a couple of degrees. We believe it came in from an 80-degree angle, so almost completely up and down. And the way scientists actually test these things is they throw rocks from different angles at different speeds into water and sand and test the ripple patterns. So if y'all don't believe me, go home, fill up that bathtub, start throwing rocks in it, and just let me know what y'all find out. We actually used to offer tours down there to the bottom. Like I said, back in the day, 50 cents to get you in and out. However, we cut it off at around the 80s. And the reason for that is that people were causing too much unnatural erosion. Like I said, we're all about preservation here, and we want to keep it looking like it does. In fact, a movie was actually filmed here in the 1980s, John Carpenter's Starman. And the final scene involves a guy getting beamed up to a mothership at the bottom of the crater. However, the camera crew, big old camera crew going up and down, caused so much erosion that after that production ended, we eventually closed it off to the public. So nowadays, the only people actually allowed down there, NASA, B612, other researchers, people with way higher credentials than me. And even then, it's a small operation. They can't bring their big old instruments or anything. They just collect samples and stuff like that and check erosion. I think
How do they get down there?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a little bit hard to see right now from where we're at. But if you look down towards this western wall, you kind of see like a gradual line that kind of cuts into that mountain. That goes all the way up here until eventually it'll hit a little switchback zigzag trail. but it is not a fun hike, or so I've been told. I still have yet to be down there.
Do you think you'll ever go down?
Yeah, so they are training people just because we're getting some researchers coming in, and we're the ones that escort them down there to the bottom. So it's exciting, but also it's a very steep hike. So I'm kind of going back and forth between excitement and nervousness. No. The Bar Ranch, they own all the land around here except that ranch. Any other questions for me? I think I'm just about the end of done with my little speech. And if there's no more questions, I just want to say right over here, right where I'm standing, is a fantastic opportunity for pictures. I will take a picture of you for free. So if anybody wants a picture, please come on up. You guys can go.
Yes, and that was a lot of fun. I did edit out where he took some pictures. We all kind of stood around, and everybody was very pleasant about it. And he took pictures at that spot of anybody that asked. And I don't know if they do it on purpose or not, but there was a group of 6 of us, and it just the crater really pops in the background. Very, very cool photo op.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, again, a great guide. Lots of fun hearing from him. Kind of sad that they don't let tourists go down to the bottom anymore. Wish I would have been here as a kid in the early 80s and had that opportunity. Of course, if you were able to do that, you've got some serious bragging rights now. Went ahead and edited out most of our walk back to the visitor center. He wasn't kidding, though. We got there and the door was locked and we had to wait for him to get there, which was pretty cool. Here's a quick look in the museum as to information about craters and about this area in particular. Lots of interactive stuff too, by the way. They even had one of those kind of, I think, virtual rides. We did not do that. But we went through here and just kind of enjoyed walking through. We went through a couple of times. Oh, very cool display about, I think it was a meteor that went through a house in Alabama. And I remember that display, I think, from our first visit when we came to Meteor Crater. And I just thought that was pretty neat. The gift shop, by the way, was another gift shop where I dropped a little bit of money. They have a very cool gift shop. And they actually do sell small pieces of, I guess, the iron that they've collected from the area. I'm sure there's a ton of it, but you can actually get small pieces right there at the gift shop. And, of course, I had to buy some.
I don't know if I'm believing the hype. The build-up is.
Maybe it's not.
But you.
It went black and then I pushed it.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe not. Just sitting here all day.
Moving at 11 miles per second, a meteor raced through the solar system towards Earth. Immense shock waves were created as it approached from the east. Hurricane-force winds threw 175 million tons of material in all directions. The shock of impact melted most of the meteor and spread it with the large plume of debris. It took just 10 seconds and Meteor Crater was formed.
All right, there was, I guess, kind of a quasi experience where you sort of feel like you were there when the meteor hit. Anyway, I'll start winding this down. I've just wanted to give you an idea of what we did at Meteor Crater, give you a quick look, another quick run through the museum, or part of it. And I'd love to hear from anybody who had experience here, back in the 80s, maybe back when Starman was being filmed. I know I have a relative, another great viewing area of the crater, by the way. One of our relatives was younger, and they used to live in Flagstaff during the 80s, and they said they were there and saw some of the helicopters when Starman was being filmed. I think that's pretty neat. And yeah, if you were a tourist that was here in the early '80s and got to go to the bottom, I'd love to hear from you too. Again, I'm jealous, and I think that's pretty neat. I'm pretty excited for our guide though. His heart is into this, and I'm sure he's thrilled that he will be getting to go to the bottom here in the very near future. Yeah, and there's that coffee shop. Look how nice that is. Yeah, I'd like to come back and just hang out in that coffee shop one day. More cool space stuff in the gift shop. A quick look at the gift shop, by the way. Some first day covers, some signed astronaut stuff. I have a small collection of signed astronaut items, and it's always cool looking at stuff and going, I have this, or I want that. Just some more neat items that I looked at. Yeah, tad blurry. Sorry about that. And yeah, the gift shop's very cool. If you want a t-shirt, of course they've got that. If you want books, anything about Meteor Crater, they're selling it. And we enjoyed it. One last look at the visitor center on the way out. And yeah, hated to leave here. Anytime you leave a spot like that, it might be a while before you get to come back. And that's us leaving the parking lot. And again, those amazing skies in Arizona and the landscape. Our guide mentioned the cows that roam through here on our earlier visit. Back in 07, 08, we did encounter some cows in the road, and we thought that was pretty cool. Neat little gas station there before you get to Meteor Crater. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you stuck with me this long, God bless you. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about Meteor Crater. Let me know if you've been there. Let me know what your thoughts are. Just really love this place. And I'm looking forward to a return visit at some point. Thanks.